My story is a happy story.
A standing ovation for Mick Foley, the former WWE champion, the best-selling author, the now stand-up comic.
Sure, I visited a few emergency rooms in my day.
As God is my witness, he is broken in half.
And sure, maybe I'm a veteran of a few too many Norman Bates showers.
Foley tasting his own blood now, thriving on it.
But the rest of it is happy.
It's Mr. Socko time!
The part about chasing my dreams.
Mankind has achieved his dream, and the dream of everyone else who's been told you can't do it!
Overcoming odds.
Mick Foley has more heart than perhaps any superstar we've ever seen.
And retiring on top of the business.
The hardcore legend may be the toughest man to ever lace his boots.
I was born in Bloomington, Indiana, so I'm a native Hoosier. Moved to New York when I was just several months old, and I live now about 10 minutes from the house where I grew up. When I look back on it, it was really almost idyllic. You know, we had 5 or 6 neighbors all in the same street. We actually had our own street wiffle ball team, the Parsonage Yankees.
Mick and I go back actually to about 12 years old. First met Mick in my Little League days. He and I were both pitchers. Mick was one great pitcher. He was feared in the league. Great friends through junior high school and into high school.
My father was the athletic director at our high school, so I grew up attending every event imaginable. Sports was a big influence on me. I was an athlete in high school. My dad insisted that I play 3 sports as a sophomore. Oddly, I only excelled at sports they may have been team sports, but there had to be an individual function to it. I was a good goalie in lacrosse.
Played a lot of lacrosse together. Even back then, he did you know, a lot of strange things to capture everybody's attention, including but not limited to eating worms right off the field. You know, dangling them in front of the opposing attackmen and making sure that they saw him eating worms right off the playing field, which, you know, really repulsed a lot of people. Got a lot of people's attention.
But I found that the sport I enjoyed the most was amateur wrestling. I was attempting to run winter track as a way to get in shape for lacrosse. A friend of mine was the captain of the wrestling team. And he said, winter track, huh? I said, yeah. He goes, so you're probably the slowest guy in the school. And this is even before knee surgeries and a little bit of weight gain. And he said, you know, wrestling will get you in better shape than track. Going out for that team was probably the smartest, most courageous move I've ever made. And the courage comes into play when you realize that the team already had a heavyweight. And he was the toughest kid in the school, and his name was Kevin James. The King of Queens was the heavyweight wrestler. And Kevin and I ended up, we were friends and we were competitors, and he ended up having a back injury. I kind of filled in, and had it not been for that experience as a high school wrestler, just that 1 year, where I was good, I was beating people who were ranked in the county, you know, and I wasn't doing it with, I don't know how I did it. It wasn't strength. I wasn't great, and I certainly wasn't overpowering. And I was able to beat some pretty impressive people. I was a pretty gifted student who later on went on to be a great underachiever in middle school and high school, but my writing was really good.
All during school years, high school years, he wrote a lot of songs. He wrote a song that we performed actually as an air guitar band in a high school talent show. He would tell me, I remember him saying that he woke up in the middle of the night thinking of things and he would write it down. Yeah, he was definitely creative, more creative than most.
For as long as I can remember when we were young, he was always so shy. We'd always hear the stories of these funny pranks he would do, and we would always be like, Mick? Like you just wouldn't expect it because he was so quiet, but with his guys, he could plot his pranks.
As we got up in the years, 11th and 12th grade, he was pretty shy, but once he started doing some crazy stuff, our senior year, I think, he shaved half a beard and half a mustache, walked around like that for about 2-3 weeks.
Senior year, he dressed up as the homecoming queen in the high school parade, going right down Main Street in hometown Setauket. Always the entertainer.
He definitely stood out as being different. I always thought he was going to do something that kind of made him famous, and he was definitely always going to be well known.
My brother and I both went through periods where we were huge wrestling fans, where we would watch it at midnight after horse racing, and then it was also on at 11 or 12 o'clock in the daytime on Saturdays. It was there that I got to see so many of the great ones, Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund and Ivan Putski, and then when I saw Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
He had matches taped and always made us watch them when we were hanging out over his house, and yeah, he loved it.
And at that point, I started first going with my friends to the shows at Madison Square Garden, and then actually going by myself. I heard that Jimmy Snuka and Don Morocco were going to be in the steel cage at Madison Square Garden. No question in my mind that I was going. I bought a ticket, a little over face value, but it was a great seat, and I got to experience that match.
Superfly perched 15 feet high. Oh my God!
And that's a moment it's like indelibly etched in my mind, as it is in so many people's minds. I don't think anybody who was there that night will ever forget that moment. To this day, it was the most impressive sight I'd ever seen. He was literally bathed in both blood and flash bulbs. And I just remember the feeling, that being in New York City among strangers, but it was like this community and people were hugging and, there were tears. And I get goosebumps now thinking about it. And I had this vivid thought, like, I want to make people feel the way that I feel right now. And if there was one driving force throughout my career, it was that moment and that continual quest to make people feel the way that I felt that night in Madison Square Garden. I also started really becoming a student of pro wrestling. I would watch everything, and I videotaped everything, and I would study the good matches and see how guys did things. And I was always really impressed and captivated by things that didn't seem to have a loophole. Like, I could see how certain things were done, but I was really captivated by the things I couldn't quite figure out. So when I was 18 or 19, I made this decision that I was going to create a style for myself that was pretty much without loopholes, that the viewers they could look back time and time again on their videotape and say, I don't know how he does that. And the short answer is almost everything I did ended up hurting. Like, that was my style. If it really hurt a lot, people would think it hurt a little. And cumulatively, they would appreciate what I was doing, and it would my hope was that it would lend credibility to what I was doing. And of course, that's a better idea at 19 than it is at 30. But by that time, I'd become somewhat pigeonholed as the guy who took all the punishment. I was a sophomore in college. This was a year after the Superfly Snuka Leap, when my dad told me that the high school was going to be hosting an independent wrestling show. And my dad had spoken to the promoter and said he had a son who was interested. The promoter said if I came down, that he would talk to me. And what the promoter didn't know is that some friends and I had made a video a home video about this character, Dude Love.
Dude, tell me about yourself.
Let me tell you something, Dan. I don't think there's really any need to go into my credentials. I don't think there's any need to discuss who's the best wrestler in the world. Because very simply, you're looking at him right here.
When I was a freshman in college, I created this alter ego, Dude Love, who was pretty much everything that I wasn't.
But you're not talking about a regular man. You're talking about a man, Dude Love, who transcends the ordinary. A man who exudes brilliance in his every step. A man who played 3 junior varsity sports, who can bench press over 150 pounds.
With the women, he was handsome, he was cool, and I started becoming this guy.
A lot of people think I got where I am today just on natural ability, but that's not true. Even the dude needs some help. And you can get that same kind of help I got by drinking Love Potion.
I was always somebody who loved to get reactions. I mean, to this day, you know, to get a reaction in any form, whether it's on stage, in the ring, doing a promo, that was always the driving force. And so I wanted to be that guy, Dude Love, who was going to be my ticket to success in professional wrestling.
We're here for only one reason only. Fame, honor, fortune, glory, to destroy and to take that World Wrestling Federation belt.
I did get a chance to attend that wrestling event at the high school, and it turned out to be one of the biggest events possible, namely because the promoter got a chance to see the video that my friends and I had shot.
Oh my God, this is iconic! Fully unbelievable! Pandemonium is breaking loose! 257 pounds of unleashed fury! Unbelievable, he's high! Never in my life have I seen such action. Love must be 50, 60, 70 feet in the air. You remember what, man? You remember that, Vince McMahon? You remember that?
And I looked over at the promoter, and he just had this smile on his face, like he had just discovered the next great, star. He had no idea like how wrong he was about that, and how little I knew, and how long the process would be. But that was a big moment when Tommy D asked me if I would be on his ring crew, and he said that he knew a wrestler named Dominic DeNucci, and Dominic would train me after I set up the ring. And that the ring building process, when you do it by yourself, driving down from Cortland, New York to Brooklyn, about 200 miles, going up to the 8th floor of a storage building. I had to take each piece of the ring out of the storage unit, piece by piece, put it into an elevator, piece by piece, bring it down, unload it piece by. It was, even though it was a 22-hour. I remember that first night. It was 22 hours. I just exhausted. I got $25, and I got my first wrestling lesson, which consisted of Dominic really, testing my will, not abusing me, but pushing me. And he kept saying, "You want to be a wrestler, so you want to be a wrestler."
He came in and he told me, "I want to be a wrestler." I looked at him, I said, "Well," I said, "you got a lot of work to do."
But every time there was a show, I was there, I was setting up the ring. Sometimes we didn't get the ring set up in time, so there were weekends where I would drive down and not get a chance to wrestle. But after about 4 months, he told me he had some students that he was training in Pittsburgh, and he asked me if I wanted to join them. Had I any geographic sense at the time, that would have been the end. That would have been the end of my my wrestling career, because Pittsburgh was 350 miles from Cortland. But I started taking that drive almost every weekend. I'd say 3 out of 4 weekends I went to Pittsburgh. And so I more or less abandoned like the college party life. I never went to a spring break. My spring breaks were spent wrestling in Ohio and West Virginia.
Some of my friends, sometimes they come watch there, and when I tell them, Mickey Foley come from the college, he go to college in Syracuse, New York, and he said, he looked at me and he said, is something wrong with him? I said, no. I said, he want to learn, so, so you have to take care of that, man.
Dominic, I will say, took me under his wing. He'll be the first to tell you that when I got here, I couldn't tie my own shoes.
When you came in here first, okay? The first month you came in here, you couldn't tie your shoes.
Right.
Okay? You were flipping over your own feet in the ring, okay?
It took a lot of patience on his part to teach someone something that came so easily to him that was so difficult for me. And he would set aside evenings. I would come and he would set aside evenings for just me and him to be here wrestling.
After a month, I can see I teach him something on a Saturday. The next day, he come early in the morning because he was leaving to go back to school. And what I teach him on a Saturday, you remember, and that's the way I was judging my boys. And I have to say that the guys working out was Shane Douglas. They were very fast to pick up the thing,
Based on initial appearances, I just figured he'd be one of those that would come and go, and until we got inside that first day, because he showed from the very first minutes that he walked into the school that even though he didn't look to be, the most athletic person or in the peak of shape, that he had heart, and you could see that right from the very first day.
To most of the people in this gym, wrestling is like a dream, and there's very few people out there in the world who are really doing what they want to do. He's given me a chance to live out a dream.
It worked out that right before I went to college for my senior year, WWE had called Dominic DeNucci and asking for some extra talent. And so here I was, I'd had one match against Kurt Kaufman in Clarksburg, West Virginia at the Clarksburg Armory. And next thing I know, I'm in front of 17,000 people.
To my right, introducing from Bloomington, Indiana, weighing 242 pounds, Jack Foley.
I came in, and it was still, to this day, it was one of the toughest, most painful nights of my entire career. Probably because I had such little experience, they wanted to ensure that the stuff looked good. I remember Dynamite Kid just dropping a headbutt on me, and I sat up and my eyes were crossed, hurt me for weeks. And he hit me with basically hit me with his bicep across the jaw, and it didn't look like a devastating clothesline. I mean, I've seen much more devastating clotheslines, but it was where it was delivered, and it put me in a position where I could not chew food for a month. It dislocated my jaw, and gave me a concussion.
I don't remember him complaining. He didn't come back and say, that bastard, he broke my jaw, whatever. It was just, I think he broke my jaw, and, it was just, he still was happy to be there, just to be, in that company learning something. But once the agents had seen that these two kids from Dominic's school could get in there and have these pretty decent matches, we started getting used over and over again.
Word started getting around. By then, I'd graduated college, and I was doing shows in Long Island and the New York area. Dominic had been great with putting my name out there and recommending me. I remember he called the AWA from his house to recommend me.
And to take a back body drop right on that concrete, had to take a lot out of it.
I first saw Cactus Jack. He was on Dallas television. And here was this goofy-looking guy in the ring. I thought, my God, the first time I saw him, I thought, my God, they'll stoop to any level in Dallas to get somebody, Where'd they get this guy? And then I watched him. And for some reason, I was attracted to him.
And Eric Embry, if you're flamboyant, then I'm an aviator, and everybody knows that I can't fly.
He was so unusual and so different than anybody else in the profession.
Going at it, this Jack, what a goofy individual he is, but he certainly is tough. Mark, he's one of those guys, high diddle right up the middle. No style, no finesse, doesn't care. He'll take 4 punches to get one, but that's just his style. It doesn't seem to bother him.
Like, I was doing some wild stuff, but it was that look.
Cactus Jack, a madman of his own proportion.
And I had that look in my eye, and that look you know, it would allow people to suspend disbelief. Like, okay, he might not be as big and as strong as some of those guys, but he might be crazy.
You don't mess around with a guy.
That look will bring you a long way. And I had that look like he's crazy, but he enjoyed himself, and it made my matches stand out.
Always dangerous and unpredictable, Cactus Jack Manson.
Manson, I think, has less regard for his body, his own body, than any wrestler I have seen in a long, long time.
I ended up driving to Atlanta, uninvited, for a TV taping. Shane Douglas was one of the dynamic dudes at the time. Shane had told me, come on down.
We spoke all the time. In fact, Mick and I had, up to a very, certain point later in our careers, anytime we were offered something or had some, offer made to us or an opportunity, we would call each other and say, hey, this is what's being offered, and this is the company, and what do you think, and this is what they want to do, what do you, and we'd give each other input on what was happening, and we were that close of friends. So I'd called Mick and I said, if you get a chance, bring your gear and come down. I didn't know if there was any opportunity to get him onto the card, but I knew if he was there and he had his gear, there was a great likelihood we could get him on.
But I showed up, and enough guys had seen me in world class. They knew about the elbow I did. Jim Cornette was a big fan. He was part of the booking committee. And they told me to come back in 2 weeks when they had their next taping. Well, I saw my name on the blackboard against the Steiners. Rick and Scott Steiner, they were like animals, I mean, they had great matches with top talent, but they could be pretty rough, on the, and I'll never forget that Kevin Sullivan came up to me and he said, brother, what's your finish? What's my finish? Like, I'm working with the Steiners. Like, I don't think I'm gonna get any offense in, let alone a finishing move. And I said, well, I drop an elbow. He goes, an elbow is your finish? Jim Cornette heard it. He goes, Kevin, you got to see this thing. It's the damnedest thing you ever see. He puts the guy on the concrete and does this, that. And Kevin goes, brother, I don't care how badly Ricky and Scotty hurt you. At the end of that match, I want you to get up, and I want you to do that elbow on your partner.
No, he's not. Right off the leg. Good Lord. What is wrong with him? There's something not right here.
And I just went to myself, oh my God. And when he got in the back, I just walked up, introduced myself to him, and I just said, you got no sense in all these. He said, never forget it. He said, no, Arn, I got no dollars at all. And that cleared it up.
It got people talking, It was an unusual way to debut. Although not everybody agreed or enjoyed my style, I always felt fortunate that people could see something in me, like they saw the desire.
A guy that's very, very deranged, very unorthodox. He does a lot of things. He puts his body in a lot of jeopardy.
I didn't think that Mick Foley would be walking past the age of 30 when I first started seeing him, because he was taking just ludicrous, crazy bumps. And that was what he was getting known for. And I was really worried that he wasn't going to succeed at first and end up crippled.
I don't even think Cactus Jack knows if he's getting hurt or not. He just seems oblivious at times to pain.
When you really thought you had him down and out, Mick would get back up, and he took some unreal risks with maneuvers out of the ring where it looked like it killed him. And the next thing you know, Mick is still coming at you.
Cactus Jack, as we have said, is a double tough individual, takes a lot of chances, and he's involved in a lot of big collisions. He has a very, very high threshold of pain and takes a lot of chances in the ring.
He knew to be successful, because of his atypical body type, that he had to be unique. He had to be very, very different.
This Cactus Jack, he's one in a million. He's one in a million.
I was a big fan of his. He was one of the greatest psychologists I've ever seen. He was a ridiculous bump taker.
He looked insane, and he certainly wrestled like a madman. He was doing these moves, going out over the top, clotheslining somebody over the top rope and going out with them and landing harder than the fella that was getting hit.
Cactus Jack has burnt the candles at both ends and in the middle.
So Mick had to be extreme in the true sense of the word to get noticed, and he damn sure did that.
Now, there's a lot of pages here in the wrestling wrap-up, and not one of them about Cactus Jack. But you ask any person that I've ever left laying in a heap of their own unconsciousness, and they'll tell you that Cactus Jack is front page news.
You know, I was becoming very, very likable. And had I stayed, I think that would have run its course, and I would have had a nice little run as a bottom middle of the card. A good guy, but sometimes it's funny how fate plays a hand. Ole Anderson came in. He took over the booking duties, and he was not a fan of my style or my work, or me personally, at least for a while. It turned out to be absolutely the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was able to leave WCW. And that's a tough decision to make when you actually are now making, at that time, $1,500 a week was about a 500% raise from what I'd been making in Continental or World Class. And when you have a chance to work national television and work in big arenas and you willingly give that up, it's a big step. When I went back to the independents, I did it with a definite goal in mind. Both for the character to be taken more seriously, and also, I wanted to steal every show I was on. That should be everybody's goal at every time. And, I would leave, these gymnasiums looking like a hurricane had hit them sometimes, I'd had my first taste of Japan. I'd gone over and worked for All Japan.
Mick made a lot of international pub during that time because, and the footage would get back. So some of us that were scouting and looking for new guys and looking for new matches and trying to learn what else is trendy in the other parts of the world, Mick's name just kept popping back up.
For 9 years, people have told me, Cactus Jack, you're nothing but a psycho. They told me I was some kind of warped loser. But now it's time for me to tell you something about Cactus Jack. You can beat me, you can hurt me, but I'm telling you, with all the will in this twisted mind, you can't stop Cactus Jack.
When I had an opportunity to come back to WCW, about 15 months later, I came back as Cactus Jack, but it was a much different character, and it was mostly a question of confidence. I had it.
So getting Mick hired that second time was really a layup.
There was no question when I arrived back in WCW that I expected to be taken seriously. And I remember the powers that be saying, look, we've got a number one guy, which would be Sting. We don't have a strong number two, and we think you can be that guy.
And we felt that Mick was excellent for Sting because he was bigger than Sting. He put Sting in jeopardy.
And so when he came up to me and, wait a second, hey, you have any ideas? I've got a lot of ideas. This is a guy I wouldn't have felt comfortable talking to like that 15 months earlier. But I had that confidence, and he just looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, you expect Sting, a guy who's been used on top, to do this with a guy nobody's ever heard of? And I went, yes. And WCW was a company at the time that was not drawing particularly well on the road, but they had strong television numbers. So on their Clash of the Champions, several million people would see this special. And I attacked Sting. I came out of a gift box.
Oh, wait a minute, it's Cactus Jack!
And I remember being in that box and literally praying because I knew that it was the biggest moment of my career.
He's attacking Sting! Cactus Jack above us here! Hey, get him off there! He's right on top! Watch this guy!
If there was ever a time to deliver the elbow of a career, this was it.
Oh my God! Off the top, the second turnbuckle! Can you believe that? His elbow driven right into the heart of Sting!
That move, if you can make a guy with one move, that was what made me.
Sting was our guy. He was the it guy. But he needed a new villain to test the water with. And Mick did things that the other villains that worked with Sting had not done.
He got him! That elbow flush in the midsection.
Bang, bang!
The best matches and the best programs are the ones that benefit both guys. Sting was a top guy, but he'd grown a little bit stale and they needed an opponent. And it was a shot in the arm to him. It was a career maker for me.
Sting has a front face lock. Can he get him up? Oh, yeah!
He put me on the national map in those matches. They were really good matches on a nightly basis. JR, as an announcer, he really got across the message that, hey, this guy may not be winning matches, but he's somebody to be taken seriously.
Cactus Jack, a man that just doesn't care to put his own body in jeopardy to accomplish his goals.
He brought a lot of credibility to my character. And like any bad guy who does a good job, you know, I eventually started getting cheered.
He's one of those people, you can't help but like him.
I have kind eyes, and even if they're wild and glaring, like, after a while, people got the idea, like, he's a pretty good guy. And they also understood completely that I was delivering way above and beyond the norm, really for their entertainment. And they appreciated that.
He hurt himself. He landed on the concrete.
I think so. I think the man that got the brunt of that was Cactus Jack.
That's who he is. Mick displayed his willingness to endure pain to entertain these people, and they loved him for it. And that's his sacrifice to the fans.
Oh, God, right on the concrete. Oh, no. Right on the back of his head on the concrete.
There's not real words to describe what he was, because it was a very unique style that he had. He just wanted to be the one and only.
Cactus Jack, one of the craziest men in the world.
Everyone in WCW had pigeonholed him as a Bruiser Brody, Abdullah the Butcher style brawler.
No human being could get back up after that, but he's doing it.
Mick had so much more to offer, and he had so much talent that nobody truly understood.
Can't hurt Cactus Jack.
He was going to make a name for himself, one way or the other. You could see the desire in his eyes that people will never forget me.
My head's been hurt. My pancreas punished. I've never felt this bad in my life, but I've never been happier.
The problem I encountered is that for well over a year, the audience had been told repeatedly, look at, he loves the pain, he enjoys the pain.
Wooden crate there. Oh, my.
I'm a man. Twisted and deranged, yeah, but a man nonetheless.
And now it became difficult to have sympathy for a guy who was supposed to have loved and enjoyed pain, which, by the way, I don't. You know, that's never been the case. It's certainly not true now.
Vader! You're next! On Halloween Havoc, you get the cut, because you're next, baby!
He had the creativity, he had the mind to create situations in his head, and then he had enough courage to carry it out.
Vader was the one guy because he was so big and so intimidating and so believable. I mean, he hit so hard.
He's eating people up! One at a time, two at a time, it doesn't seem to matter. He's an instrument of destruction, and people are being hurt, and I like that.
Jack had the ability to look me right in the eye and fight me punch for punch, blow for blow.
He would just get you in the corner of those forearms, and he would tee off, I mean, as hard as he possibly could, both sides of the head.
Vader is a proven commodity, big, massive man. He's arguably the most athletic super heavyweight ever.
But we got great reactions, and it wasn't like, okay, he's doing something he loves, getting beaten up. I mean, people felt sympathy for me.
I was honored and privileged to work with Jack, and as I get older and look back, you know, you look at yourself and you look at your opponent and you go, wow, we actually did that.
You see, Vader, I know what goes inside that sick head of yours. You're like a big game hunter, yeah.
I had a shovel I was gonna use, and I remember Harley Race looking at me. He goes, if you don't hit him, talking about Vader, I'll come back here and hit you. So he put the fear of Harley into me. And when I came out there, Vader was doing his thing. I feel no pain. And I hit him as hard as I could with that metal scoop shovel. I feel no pain. He screamed.
Cactus Jack's got a shovel! Cactus Jack's dead! He hit Vader! Oh, he hit Race in the face! He hit Orton over the back! Cactus Jack is back for revenge!
I mean, I commenced to swinging that thing.
Cactus Jack is swinging away!
I mean, I've never been hit so hard in my life.
You see, when steel met human flesh, you did feel pain.
I was expecting more people to come out of the back, and apparently guys were just refusing, you know? There was a, go, no, I'm not going.
He gave and he took, because when you hit me with a shovel that hard, you have to understand and realize that, you know, that's gonna come back to you.
Fear is a very human feeling. Cactus Jack feels fear all the time. Fear that maybe I've run out of miracles, that maybe Van Vader's gonna give me the beating I can't get up from. Fear that maybe I've thrown myself at concrete floors one too many times.
That became like my big rivalry, and I would gear up for those matches as if they were the biggest matches of my life, you know, which they were.
Mick could feed off of the things that Vader did, take these, you know, hellacious bumps to enhance Vader's power and his awesomeness.
This is the type of athlete that maybe we need in there with Van Vader, the kind of man that can really upset Vader.
The Vader Cactus Jack feud, it was definitely the hottest thing in wrestling, period.
Those matches were brutal, and Mick was determined to be the most brutalized victim of Big Van Vader.
Several times when I powerbombed him on the cement floor.
I truly used to worry about it a lot because of the amount of punishment he'd inflict on himself.
There was a fight or a match, let's just call it what it was a fight, and I purposely didn't wear my gloves, and we went out, and I know I closed his eye. I know there was a large gash, you know, that required several stitches. His nose was definitely broken 3 or 4 places.
When I was on Vader's back, and he essentially crushed me, I had a Lloyd's of London insurance policy. I was honestly tired of the politics. I'd worked so hard. I knew things were not looking up. And that essentially was going to be the end of my career.
It wasn't the first time people had used me to capitalize on insurance policies of that nature. I don't know if that's a good thing to have a rep quite like that, a reputation where people use you to get out of the business.
And then I was like, oh, I can move. Like, you know, and I went to a few doctors, and of course there were some things wrong with me, but I never was able to cash in on that, you know, Lloyd's of London insurance policy. I remember thinking, like, I've never reached this height before, and I never will again, because I knew that from that point on, you know, I was going to be put on the back burner. The decision to leave really wasn't a certainty until I lost my ear. And on this particular night in Germany, I didn't know. One of the earlier wrestlers said the ropes were too loose. So the ring crew, which was actually a rock and roll crew, wasn't a real wrestling ring crew, they tightened the ropes up. This was a move I probably should have taken out of the repertoire. And so when I did my move, I thought, I can't get out of here. I knew I was injured.
Between him and the referee managed to get himself out.
It seemed like minutes, but it was really just seconds.
And I believe the ear was partially torn off at that point.
And I knew that back of the ear is cartilage, not likely to bleed, and yet here I was, just this pitter-patter of bright red blood, and I thought to myself, this has got to be pretty bad. We got in there, and, you know, I ended up firing up a comeback, and what I didn't know was that as I did, I blocked a punch, I threw a punch, and my ear fell off.
I always had been of the opinion that I didn't rip his ear off, that the ropes did it. And I was just showed a tape where it actually showed me ripping the ear off. So either my memory's convenient or I'm getting sin out. You have to watch and maybe put it on slow-mo, but I actually did rip his ear off.
And I felt back, and whoa, that bad boy's gone, you know, it's gone. And so the referee who picked up my ear was French, spoke no English, and wasn't able to tell me he had my ear, but he handed it to ring announcer Gary Michael Capetta, who brought it to the back, and he told Ric Flair, I have Cactus Jack's ear. What would you like me to do with it? And I later asked him, what did it look like? He said it looked like a piece of uncooked chicken with tape on it. Because I knew I was going to do this move, so I had taped up the back of my ear. Apparently, you know, didn't take enough precaution. And I got to the first hospital, and they didn't have room for me. Got to the second hospital, and again, only in wrestling, you know, can you say vergessen Sie nicht bitte mein Ohr and the Plastiktasche zu bringen to the EMTs, which means please don't forget to bring my ear in the plastic bag. I didn't realize that it was pushed off instead of cut off, and therefore, it had been too badly damaged. So they did like 4 hours of plastic surgery to make it look pretty much like a really small ear. It's not like grotesque. You look at the good one, you look at that one, it's not hideous, it's just odd, it's a little bit weird. It comforted me was knowing that I was lucky enough to be in the one profession where losing an ear is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, this is a wrestling booker's dream. No question in my mind that getting in the ring with a microphone and getting revenge on the man responsible for costing my ear would have been big money. And that was not what was wanted from me.
The feud was diminished and taken away from us. Certainly the wrestling fan wanted it, and Jack and I both felt it should have continued on for a long, long time.
There was nothing done with it, and so I gave my notice. At the time I decided to leave WCW, I had 2 small children, and I left a guaranteed contract without telling my wife. Like, I didn't discuss that. I made up my mind. I had a bigger picture, and I had a belief in myself that I hadn't traveled this far on my journey to have it end, at one person's whim. And so I took the bold step of leaving and trying out the independents. I had a job waiting for me in ECW. Paul Heyman was a big supporter of mine.
Mick brought an unadulterated, uninhibited style, a willingness to sacrifice that others had to match, and he raised the bar in terms of sacrifice when it came to the ECW locker room.
This is Eastern Championship Wrestling. It's not for everyone, but apparently it's for Cactus Jack. He may have found a new home.
Mick brought credibility to the ECW locker room because fans around the world knew him as Cactus Jack. He was a star. Even if he was not a top star in WCW, he was a star who had serious TV time. His style was also suited perfectly for the early days of ECW, when it was all about being extreme and all about being physical and getting everyone's attention.
He may be the most hardcore wrestler in the history of all mankind.
I think I did certainly my best microphone work in ECW. I had some anger and frustration. I mean, I would see the parade of guys who came into WWE. So some dumb gimmicks, things that anyone could tell wasn't really going to work. It was offensive to me that the phone wasn't ringing. But there was a lot of frustration, and luckily for me, there was no Twitter available. So I wouldn't have an instant outlet, like, oh, no one will hire. What I had was an ability to let things build in my mind, not claiming this is healthy emotionally, and then I would let out very real emotion in these wrestling interviews.
You ripped out my heart! You took everything I believed in and you flushed it down the damn toilet! You flushed my heart! You flushed my soul! And now it sickens me to sit back and see other people making the same mistake. You see, Tommy Dreamer, I gotta listen to my little boy every day of my life say, Daddy, I miss Atlanta, and I say, it's too bad, son, because your dad traded in the Victorian house for a sweat box in Long Island. Your dad traded in $100,000 contract, guaranteed money, insurance, respect, and the name on the dotted line of the greatest man in the world to work for a scumbag who operates out of a little pissant pawn shop in Philadelphia.
We were shooting the very first Mick Foley, Cactus Jack villain promos, and we knew we struck gold 5 seconds after the camera went on. He just hit. It was like nothing. It was a transformation.
Problem with being hardcore is, by the very nature of the name, we give of ourselves, of our bodies, of our hearts, and of our souls. And for each one of us who gives, there's bloodthirsty low-life fans out there only willing to take.
Mick really proved himself to be a fantastic writer, even an actor, by writing that verbiage, that dialogue, and reciting it so perfectly in terms of timing and inflection and facial expressions. It made for fantastic television.
So we enter the world of professional wrestling, where Cactus Jack began to carve out his own style. A style based on blood. A style based on sweat and more than a few tears. And we enter the dressing room in Canton, Ohio in 1989, and one of the most revered figures in the history of our sport walks up to me after a particularly grueling match and says, "No one cares about you. No one cares about your style." And with a certain gleam in his eye, he told me, not as a prediction, but as fact, "You'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 30. Well, I've got 1 week to go, and I've been doing it my way, the concrete way.
While I was wrestling in ECW, I had the opportunity to go to Japan for the first time since 1991. One of my key goals in wrestling was to really make a difference somewhere. And I couldn't prove that I'd actually done that. Like, you could say, okay, this rating went up 0.2 of a point in WCW, but it wasn't like, the company would fold if I left. I hadn't popped the territory, as they say in wrestling. And once I heard that Terry Funk had jumped to IWA Japan, a small group that was based on Blood and Guts, I decided to make that jump.
The matches would just get too extreme and too dangerous, and they did on several occasions. And I know we went to the hospital too many times after. And just out of, compassion for the quality of the product that we were going to put out there, because we were in the ring together and we were going to be the best.
We did things to each other that just weren't humane. That same move that cost me my ear, well, I tried that again, but in barbed wire. So I didn't learn lessons, quickly. And it never occurred to me that my weight would cause the barbed wire, like it wouldn't hold me. And so the wire collapsed and I ended up hanging, hanging, and both my fingers were caught up in the barbed wire. When I pulled those fingers out, it was just hideous, We got to the back. Terry Funk and I had this, amazing match in a cold arena in front of a very small crowd, and Tracy Smothers was helping me pour the antiseptic. Literally, you could see the bones in my pinkies, pouring it in, taping it up, and then you get on the bus, and it's just this horrible stench of, stale blood. It's this iron smell, and we did make a difference. We put that little promotion on the map. We ended up having almost 30,000 fans at the baseball stadium, and Terry and I had the final match, no rope, barbed wire, with explosions, C4 laced to barbed wire, and I left that match in much worse shape than I entered it, but I was the king of the death match.
Mick was special to me, and I wanted to help him in every way that I could. And here was Mick, a young kid. You want to pass it on and to somebody. And you want to pass it on to a person that you think is going to be a plus to the profession. And that's who I was passing it on to. I was passing the hat. And I wouldn't have done it for anybody else.
It was Jim Ross who called me from WWE.
I kept pitching and pitching Mick to Vince because I knew in my mind, once Vince saw Mick, he would like it. Secondly, once Vince got to know Mick on an individual basis, he would love the guy.
After all these many years, I'm finally creating my very own symphony of destruction.
When I showed up at WWE offices for my first meeting with Mr. McMahon, there was an illustration of a guy in like an iron mask. And I honestly thought it was meant for somebody else. I went home, I was not sold on the idea, to the point where I actually called up JR and we talked for a couple of hours. I agreed to do the mask. The mask changed somewhat because you couldn't wear an iron mask. I was when we came up with the idea of Mankind. I could talk about the future of mankind, the destruction of mankind. And Vince would nod and he would shake his head.
I just felt that Mankind was gonna be really just Cactus Jack. It was Mick who then totally decided to even make that character very different from Cactus Jack.
Go for broke once he got here. And he also knew that the powers that be kind of are looking for different sculpted superstars and different kind of looks.
Maybe I could have two different pieces of music, an entrance theme and an exit theme.
Weighing 287 pounds, Mankind!
Until the moment I walked out for my first match, I didn't know what my name was going to be. I've got a folder from my first WrestleMania that says Mutilator on it. And I came out and I was Mankind, and when the match was over, I heard some beautiful piano music coming in. And it turns out, you know, they had gone with pretty much everything I had suggested. It was really important to me that I make this character feel as real as he could.
State of the Undertaker. Look out! Look out! Look out! Down below! Look out! Oh my gosh! Anything positive I say about Mankind without including the Undertaker's role in making Mankind, it would be, you know, kind of foolish. I went to Milwaukee for King of the Ring in June 1996 to wrestle the Undertaker. I never believed I had there was a chance of me gaining a W.
The winner of this contest, Mankind!
I thought that was my one match. I didn't know it would just be the start or something.
Mick was put to the test right away against The Undertaker.
I don't know if he was intimidated by that challenge, but I thought he handled it superbly.
The way that Mick was so unselfish and giving of himself was well received by The Undertaker, to say the least.
Where was the crazy psycho Mankind willing to go? And is he willing to go further than the Dead Man?
They had a lot of trust for each other. Boiler Room Brawl, I was there when we recorded it. That was brutal, man.
It's kind of like my unloved child of matches. You know, I don't think people appreciated it. I think there were still a lot of people who missed Cactus Jack. Those fans who knew Cactus Jack missed him. Like, they didn't see Mankind as being the real me. And I think Mind Games changed a lot of minds.
I am wrestling the wackiest cat that the World Wrestling Federation has ever seen.
Mick was fantastic to be in the ring with.
It was brutal, it was physical, but it was really creative. Like, there was some really cool stuff that hadn't been done before or after.
What I remember more than anything about that match was the creativity, the different kind of creativity that Mick brought to the match. Suplexing him on the outside of the ring, been done. But having his leg swing over and whack.
That is a perfect example of the wrestling style of Mick Foley. It's wrestling dialed up to 11. It's a little bit more violent. It's a little bit more crazy.
Him bringing in all these different elements, pulling up the mat, and having me jump on it, stomp on a number of different things that we did in this match that a WWE crowd and a pay-per-view crowd had not seen, had not been exposed to, and it made Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, look a ton more aggressive. Gave him an edge that he didn't have at that time.
And I'm really flattered that Shawn gives that match credit for letting people see him in a different light.
That is Mick Foley, and that's one of my favorite matches of all time. Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels at Mind Games. It doesn't get any better than that.
That was the match that I looked to as being the greatest match of my career for a long time. Somehow, Mr. McMahon had come to feel that my actual life story was more interesting than the fictional one we'd created as Mankind.
Over the next few weeks, I'm going to take you on a different kind of odyssey, a 26-year journey of a young boy named Mick Foley. Boyhood dreams turned into a living hell.
You know, I'd worked too hard on the character, like I thought it was almost there, and I came up with the idea, I said, what if I do the interview, all the answers will be legitimate answers, but I will do them in character.
I wanted to hear people cheer for me because of some act of bravery that I committed. So I ascended up onto my friend's roof and I dove off.
It was long and it was good, like there was a lot of good stuff there, and they divided it up into 5 segments.
Every time I put on the mandible claw, in my mind, that's Vince McMahon, and I'm saying, why didn't you take me when I was good? Why didn't you take me when I was young?
I rode with Stone Cold Steve Austin to one of the towns after the first segment had aired, and he goes, what, are they turning you babyface, kid? No, I just think it's a way for, you know, the people to get to know the character a little bit better. He goes, he'll be babyface in 2 weeks.
When my little boy says, Daddy, I want to play ball, and I can't do it, is that where the fun starts?
And it was the strangest thing, because if you look back, there was no Mick Foley Mankind turn. Just every week, more and more people were cheering me.
They were throwing worms at me, Jimmy. So what do you do to retaliate? You throw the worm back? At 7 or 8 people? It's not the fact they were hurting me, they were wounding my pride. So I picked up the largest specimen, Jimmy, and I sucked it down!
People were really feeling sympathy for the character. They really got behind the character. It was good. And I don't think a change has ever come about that organically. The interview with JR also introduced Vince McMahon to Dude Love.
So in my movie, I was not Mick Foley, I was Dude Love.
Vince had no idea that I had wanted to be this guy, you know, that I had created this alter ego who was there to be all the things that I couldn't be.
I'll put those earrings in, and I'm gonna get the girls.
I remember getting a phone call way too early in the morning, and he was like, hey, pal. Hey, Vince, how you doing? How'd you like to be Dude Love? I was like, you mean one time? He goes, from now on. I kept trying, as Mankind, to come to the rescue of Stone Cold Steve Austin. My help was being rejected by way of the Stone Cold Stunner.
DTA, you stupid piece of trash! Don't ever trust nobody!
I guess, you know, something just snapped in Mankind, and San Antonio, Texas, Stone Cold was in need of a tag team partner, and ow, you heard this voice. Ow!
Wait a minute.
Steve-O, looks like you could use a little help, my man, like maybe a tag team partner. What? What's the matter? Don't you recognize me? Now, I don't blame you for not teaming up with that mutilated freak Mankind, but you never said nothing about teaming up with the hippest cat in the land. Steve-O, baby, it's me, Dude Love, and I am coming to save the day. Oh, have mercy.
Steve's faces were just priceless, you know. It was great stuff, and then we won that match. We became the tag team champions. I remember thinking, like, I don't dance. Like, I never danced. My wife wishes I could dance. For that time period, I remember Vince McMahon saying, Dude Love makes people feel good. It was a nice story. It was a heartwarming story, and it coincided with this series of events I was having with Triple H.
In one moment, I'm facing the Freddy Krueger-esque psycho Mankind, and then there's Dude Love, who's like a complete goof. He's kicking me to sweet shin music.
When I wrestled Triple H in that steel cage, and we had a good match, you know, a physical match. There was a section where, you know, China slammed that the steel cage with the blue bars was just unforgiving.
Right into the top of the head of Mankind.
And I climbed up slowly but majestically to the top of that steel cage. And I think it's one of these cases where people saw what they wanted to see, you know. They saw me on top, even though I wasn't actually on the top. We had the banquet at Madison Square Garden, which was the debut in WWE of Cactus Jack. Vince McMahon had the idea for Dude Love to interview Mankind and introduce Cactus Jack.
Balls count anywhere, no disqualifications.
Oh, have mercy, Hunter, and especially your finer China. I know what you must be thinking. Dude, what are you doing back here when you should be out there kicking some heavy duty booty all over the garden? Well, Hunter, my man, I believe it's time we had a little rap. Ho-ho! Because you see, balls count anywhere. Well, that's not exactly my bag, baby. But I know somebody, Daddy, whose bag it indeed is. He's my man. He's my main man. You might even say, well, Daddy, he's a kind man. A kooky type of cat. Let's bring him out right now. Oh, Mankind, my main mandible, up high, big man. Down, oh, you're too slow. Oh, Mankind, good to have you at the Love Shack.
Hi, dude. Thanks for having me here.
The pleasure is all mine.
You really are eye candy for the chicks, dude.
That much I know, Daddy, but you gotta tell me about this wacky match. Falls count anywhere.
Dude, as much as I've dreamed about destroying Hunter Hearst Helmsley,
I know you have.
As many horrible things as I'd like to do to him,
I know you can.
I know someone who dreams about it even more.
Who is it, Manny?
Someone who's willing to do even worse things than I am.
Oh, no. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?
I think I am thinking what you think I think you're thinking.
Can you bring him out, Manny?
Here he comes.
Where is he?
Cactus Jack! He's back!
Somebody sniped me. I thought he was dead.
He's alive.
Hopefully, it may be the darkest day of your life because it's Madison Square Garden and Mrs. Foley's little boy.
Bye-bye.
Bang, bang!
Somebody slapped me. I thought he was dead.
Drastic times call for drastic measures.
Man, that was magic, that moment. You know, Mick and I had a really good chemistry.
A lot of credit goes to Triple H for the way that he reacted to Cactus Jack. And whether or not everyone was aware of Cactus Jack in that arena, I'm not sure. But the reaction was phenomenal. And we had a great match. It still holds up after all these years. The day after WrestleMania in 1998, I believe it was the return of Sean Waltman as X-Pac. It was like the making of DX, you know, into like this great force. And that was really when the next phase of DX really took off. And part of that was accomplished by a pretty severe beatdown of me and Terry.
Cactus Jack is helpless. DX and the Outlaws are taking apart Cactus Jack and Terry Funk. No! My God, it's carnage!
And it was kind of humiliating. X-Pac is actually a very, very good friend of mine now, but I didn't like the Bronco Buster in the corner. It was kind of demeaning. And when I was laying down in the ring, the announcer said something about, hey, don't go anywhere, Stone Cold Steve. And it was like this feeling like I'd just been through a humiliating, physically, punishing encounter. And to me, it was that the fans just totally disregarding me, and they started the Stone Cold chant. And I think even then I realized, I'm going to hold on to this bitterness and use it somewhere, because it was clear to me that although I'd gotten here, Steve was up here. And I accepted that, but I didn't like the fact that fans so readily chose a favorite. Having the opportunity to wrestle Steve, presented the chance for me to vent some of that frustration. And while Dude Love managed to have a couple of really good matches, I mean, I loved those two classics we had, I believe, in April and in May of 1998. I think by asking our universe to accept a change from Mankind to Dude Love to Cactus Jack to Dude Love back to Mankind in what was a pretty short order, it kind of soured people on me, is the way I felt. I felt like when I entered the Hell in a Cell in 1998 with The Undertaker, I felt, that I didn't belong in a match of that magnitude because I didn't think my character was there. I thought the changes had been damaging to me. And I certainly had no idea, when I entered that cell, that no one would ever care about anything I did before or after.
We discussed it and knew that it had to be started some way different, to be something special. And Mick wanted that match to be special. So I mentioned starting from the top.
Hardly anybody backstage had any idea what was going to happen in that Hell in a Cell match between Foley and The Undertaker.
My God, I had no idea that they were going to go to the extreme they did.
They're right above us, folks, and I don't like it a damn bit. Look out!
Forget where I was. I was in my living room at my dad's condo with about 8 of my friends, and we were all watching, and we saw a man get thrown from the top of a Hell in a Cell cage, which is about 20 feet in the air, onto an announce table, and all my friends were just, did that just happen?
Oh my God. As God is my witness, he is broken in half.
I remember watching that match live. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was in college, and I remember everybody, like all of us, just being like an absolute awe. I mean, just completely dumbfounded when he went off top of that cage, off that Hell in a Cell. We thought he was done.
It was Foley's body hitting wood, hitting concrete. So in my mind's eye, I'm thinking, well, an average human being cannot live through that ordeal. And obviously, Mick Foley was far from being an average human being.
And look at him. You are kidding me. How in the hell is he standing?
Lo and behold, somehow, you know, Mick, knowing that he's got to deliver for this audience and for The Undertaker, he wills himself back into this match.
Are you kidding me? He wants to go back up.
He gets off the stretcher and he climbs up to the top again. It was just surreal.
Good God! Good God! That's it, he's dead.
How he lived through that, I never know. It was beyond belief. I mean, here he came down through there, and when he came through that ring, he hit that mat, and believe me, that mat's not soft, and he was out, and I knew he was hurt bad. His eyes were just totally glassed over. I was scared to death for him.
When I go to stand up, and I can't, you know, it's sad, but it's also powerful because the match should have ended.
And then I see him crawling over, he's outside the ring, and he's got a tooth in his nose, and he's kind of got a perverse smile on his face, like, I'm not dead yet. You may think I'm done, but I'm not done. And man, that brought me completely into the whole storyline. That was like, this stuff is good.
Mr. McMahon came up to me after the cell. I was in pretty rough shape, you know. My tooth had ended up in my nose. I had a collection of injuries from, you know, dislocated shoulder, my jaw had been injured, a bunch of stitches underneath my lip, bruised kidney. And he said, "You have no idea how much I appreciate what you've done for this company, but I never want to see anything like that again." And he told me he was going to place a governor on me. Then he had to explain what a governor was. It's, well, you put on a car that won't allow it to exceed a certain speed, because I was going faster and driving more perilously than I should have. And so that set the bar, you know, ridiculously high. And fortunately, you know, things have changed where if a guy gets knocked out during a match, you know, the match ends, and rightfully so. But I think part of the mystique of that match and part of the emotional journey it takes viewers on is that match didn't end. I don't know if you could ever recapture that emotion. You certainly can't plan it. It's a roller coaster. For people who see more than the clips, if they actually go and watch that match, it's powerful.
I remember seeing Mick walking the next day at TV and saying to him, "I see those signs in the crowd, Foley is God. If you ain't, you're something close, because I don't know how you're walking today, dude. Like, I mean, hats off to you. I mean, no matter how it happened or what it was, you have to, I mean, your hat's off to that guy and just have to give him the ultimate respect for being willing to do that, put his body through that, and even after it happened to, you know, stand back up and continue on and just, you know, it's something special, you know.
You know what, in a way, that Hell in a Cell match was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was so injured afterwards. And I had 2 kids. I remember my wife and I, you know, we went out looking for a different house, cheaper house, you know, change, you know, our lifestyle. Like that was the, you know, retirement was looming. Until then, while I had said some funny things as Mankind, it wasn't a funny character at all. Dude Love was funny. Mankind would occasionally say something funny and then cut people off. But it was not a character with great levity to it. And I was able to sit back and realize, A, I couldn't do the things that I used to do much longer or as regularly, and B, like the market was wide open for something with a little more humor.
Vince, if the Outlaws don't like it, well, I've got 13 words for them. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Sugar-coated testes, is that a new breakfast cereal?
I started, you know, bringing in like fun things, ridiculous things.
Deborah, I bought you something for your boobs.
What? Is there something wrong?
No, as a matter of fact, I get a tingly feeling all over when I see them. But I'm afraid you're going to catch a chest cold, and in your case, that could be fatal. Here's a sweater. I've got to go. Have a nice day.
All the insane, crazy things that hardcore fans were attracted to about the Attitude Era Mick Foley provided. At the same time, Mick also brought the entertainment value. So all the fans that wanted entertainment and be entertained and laugh and have a chuckle, Mick brought that to it.
Who is it?
Come on in, Dad.
Mick?
Come on into my humble abode. It's about time we talk.
Mankind and Mr. McMahon started connecting. Mankind was kind of like a pawn to Vince, who was only thankful that Mankind wasn't Stone Cold Steve Austin. So even as Vince was being loaded into the ambulance, I had no idea that this bruised ankle given to Mr. McMahon by The Undertaker would result in, you know, a breakthrough for my career. But I was told, okay, they're loading Vince into the ambulance. Go, do something, do something.
Where is it? Where is the ambulance? What are you? Oh, no. What are you doing? Get out of there!
I'm like trying to get him like a snack and a drink. And it was just like, just little things that started piling up to mean something. And it was also his reaction, the total disdain for this, you know, this character, Mankind.
I don't want any damn visitors! I don't want any visitors!
Turn that frown upside down. Vince, it's me.
Before I left for the hospital, I had a host of terrible gifts.
I felt really bad, so I brought you some presents. Take a hold of these. Aren't they colorful?
I had a clown, an actual birthday party clown named Yerple.
Hey, Vinny, how you doing? I came to make you feel better.
Just thought I needed one more bad gift. I hate to give credit to this particular individual, but I remember saying to Al Snow, Al, what else can I bring to the hospital? You know, like, what can I bring that would be a terrible gift? And he went, how about a sock puppet? I said, a sock puppet? Everybody hates a sock puppet.
Mr. Sacco! Say hello to Mr. Sacco!
Mr. Sacco knows you've been feeling mighty bad, so he's gonna give your boo-boo a big kiss!
It was the worst ventriloquist act in history. Hi, I'm Mr. Sacco. Vince didn't know I had a sock with me, you know?
Damn it, leave.
And it wasn't until I left. I still think, all things being the same, had it not been for the last shot of Mr. McMahon, that nobody would have cared about the sock. It would have been one and done.
Mr. Sacco.
And the next day, I think we're in Detroit. And Vince Russo comes over and says, do you have the sock? Like, what do you mean you have the... I don't know. Like, what do you mean you have the sock? Because people are going crazy. They have signs for him, chants. I think everything that the character had endured, and he had also endured and endeared himself to people, it just seemed to make perfect sense. And it turned out to be the biggest, you know, biggest thing. Although Mankind had a tremendous amount of sympathy behind him, he was still technically a bad guy, even when he entered the Survivor Series as Vince's corporate guy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the World Wrestling Federation Championship is coveted in this industry. There's no doubt about that. The biggest names in the game have worn the World Wrestling Federation title. It will be bestowed, it will be won by a new man here tonight, King. Either Mankind, obviously the chosen one, the corporate chosen one by Vince McMahon, or the people's champion, The Rock. Oh, sharpshooter. There's a sharpshooter. Sharpshooter. Hey, McMahon said ring the bell. Wait a minute. What? What the hell? They were in on it all along. All three of them. They screwed us all. McMahon, the family, The Rock, they screwed us all.
The Rock turned me over in a sharpshooter, and we reenacted the Montreal screw job. I was just, I didn't know The Rock had turned, you know. He had become a bad guy, and I was now a good guy.
It was a hell of a shift, and it was a hell of a turn, because traditionally, you would never do that with a good guy who was catching on fire. I mean, I was essentially the company's top good guy at that time.
People were ready for both turns, and he became, you know, the face of Mr. McMahon's group, and it was clear that The Rock was destined, you know, for greatness. And I think it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to wrestle Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it was going to be huge when the time was right. And it was almost like, you know, we need to fill this gap. There's this period of time that needs to be filled. Not just filled, but filled really well. And he needed to be ready. And I looked at it as the ultimate honor.
As a Rock fan, this was like a disaster for me, because I was like, wait a second, no, you're supposed to be my champion, not the corporate champion. And then there's this guy, Mankind, who is just weird, eerie, interesting, and everybody loved him. So what better hero to come in than Mankind to get rid of the corporate champion?
El Rock, aren't you the clever one? You went at Survivor Series and made Mankind look like a fool. Well, now it's payback time, Rock, because of Rock Bottom. I'm not playing around, and let's make no bones about it. I will not sell the elbow. I will not sell it on a train. I will not sell it in the rain. I will not sell it here or there. I will not sell it anywhere, and you are going down.
And we had some great matches.
The rivalry that I had with Mick Foley was very special. His desire to entertain an audience through great impact with his body was mind-boggling, staggering. It makes me have a great admiration and appreciation for a guy like that when you think about all the things that he's done, just in terms of putting his body on the line.
I never saw myself as being a WWE champion. It wasn't what I had based success around, because it wasn't in the cards.
That gold is the centerpiece of this company, the WWF Championship. The Rock is what Mr. McMahon wants a champion to be. He embodies the WWF Championship. And here is Mankind, Mick Foley, the kid who played cowboys and Indians as a kid. And he said he's always the Indian because he stood up for the underdog. And that's what he is in this matchup, an underdog.
Achieved his dream and the dream of everyone else who's been told you can't do it.
I was so happy for Mick.
I'd like to dedicate this match to my two little people at home and say, Big Daddy-O did it!
I'm sitting in the ring with him when he lives his dream, that moment, and you know, being able to celebrate it with him for a second and hoist him up. It was very cool. It was, it's a moment I won't forget.
I never realized what a big deal it was until I actually had the WWE Championship in my hands.
I think it was a shift a little bit in the business at that time. Anything could happen. in the WWE. I don't think anybody, when Mick Foley walked through the door as Mankind, I don't think anybody said, well, he's going to be WWE champion soon. It was probably the furthest thing from anybody's mind, and here it was.
Rock, let me make this real simple and to the point. You want this belt that once was yours, and to do that, you have to get me to say 2 simple words. Spell I-Q-U-I-T. And that's just not going to happen because I'm gearing up for the war of my life, and I will not acknowledge the pain. I will not be applying submission holds. Very simply, I'm going to beat the living hell out of you until you can't take it anymore and you say the magic words. And every mop in this place won't be enough to clean you up. Have a nice day.
I wanted to give people a very physical match that would show an extra side, another dimension to The Rock, one of ruthlessness and viciousness. And if that was the goal, we were successful.
The things that Mick would allow me to do to him was incredible.
Mick Foley, say I quit! Mick, say it! No!
Say I quit! Go to hell, Rock! We raised the bar, and he raised the bar in terms of taking punishment and pain.
It was the one match where I think afterward everyone agreed maybe we went a little too far. Like, it wasn't, to me it wasn't entertaining. It was just, it got carried away. Both of us got caught up in the moment, and there were way too many unprotected chair shots, and it's something that will never happen again in WWE.
He's willing to put it all out there, man. And you either respect that or you think he's, well, you think he's crazy or you admire it, but you respect it any way you look at it.
It was a long, illustrious run. I mean, it was November, it was December, it was January, it was, you know, 4 pay-per-views and the empty arena match. So it was five big matches. And as over the top and barbaric as the I Quit match we had was, it showed a mean streak that The Rock needed, and he had it, you know, and it was necessary. And what that rivalry also did in the bigger scheme was set, you know, an image in mind that made the eventual teaming of Mankind and The Rock such a natural.
The people wanted Mankind as The Rock's partner. I want to be known as one half of the greatest tag team in WWF history, The Rock and Sock Connection.
Mankind just wants to be Rock's friend. And you can tell Rock getting irritated because it's cramping his style, but yet at the same time, you would see Rock smile because Mick's so entertaining.
The Rock thanks you for that.
Me and Rock are going to be functioning as a team. You know why? Because there is a bond between the two of us that is inexplicable. It's almost like we together are one luxury automobile, with Rock being the fine-tuned motor and Mankind is the rugged part that holds the luggage.
High five.
For us, I think, to come back as partners in this Rock and Sock Connection, he was able to exercise his muscles as a comedian.
What's wrong with you? You all right? All right, Rock. Rock, just one time, you go out there and you win one for the Micker.
Who in the hell's a Micker?
Idiot.
The chemistry was even better as partners. Like, it was all stuff that you couldn't script the stuff.
I know Rock leads 20 minutes. If you smell it.
Don't you ever do that again, jabroni.
I didn't think it would work. No way The Rock and Mankind is gonna work as a tag team. And then they had, like, arguably the greatest segment in the history of the WWE.
This is Big Rock. This is important. As a matter of fact, this is your life.
We had so much fun doing that, and it was one of the, not only was it my favorite Rock and Sock moment, but it was one of my favorite all-time Raw moments.
Let me ask you this. Does Mankind know how to throw a little Portuki or what?
No, you're old. If you go back and you ask people to name a great Rock and Sock match as a tag team, they're gonna have some trouble. Not that we didn't have good matches, because we did, but nobody remembers the matches. What they remember is that we made them smile and laugh, and no one will ever forget that.
It was a pleasure to work with him and to be his partner, and to watch him strategize for the match, and also watch him in an intimate way, being right there on the apron watching him work. It was a nice dynamic between us.
One of our producers mentioned to me that WWE had signed a deal with Regan Books.
I was excited about the franchise. I was excited about the opportunity that we had to work with a number of their stars.
There were going to be 3 autobiographies, and I was going first. The other 2 were The Rock and Stone Cold. So I got it right away, like, okay, I'm the guinea pig here, we're gonna see how it goes.
So I just assumed that Mick Foley would want to work with a ghostwriter to tell his story.
I called up Judith Regan, and I said I was having trouble with my writer, and she said, well, we'll just replace him, because that happens frequently, the collaboration and working out. I said, actually, I was thinking of writing it myself. You have to understand how ridiculous that sounds coming from, and because nobody did it.
He decided he wanted to write the book himself, and we were all very insecure about that idea, because we weren't used to working with people like that who actually wrote the books themselves, but he was very committed.
I said, how about if I do some writing and you see if you like it? I mean, that's as fair as we can make it. And she said, that's fine.
We were all very pleasantly surprised that he had talent and was actually a real writer.
I just had my legal pad and my pen, and I started writing. I wanted something of like a hook. And so I started off with the loss of my ear in Germany. I thought it was good, but everybody thinks their own work is good. So I came down to the dressing room and I said, hey, anyone want to listen to this stuff I wrote? Tell me what they think. A couple people came over, and I started reading, and I started getting reactions. And all of a sudden I had people around me, so I had an audience, and they were reacting, which is exactly what I loved about being in the ring. And it dawned on me right there that this is something I can do.
Mick Foley sat with pen in hand, just like William Shakespeare, and wrote his 700-plus page autobiography.
And I would work on that book literally everywhere I went. Hotel rooms, airplanes. I would just get on an airplane. I would relish the idea of having a nonstop flight from LA to New York. That was 6 hours that I could write.
I have a lot of vivid memories of like being on flights, and I would look over and I'd see Mick writing in his pads, and the only one with his light on, and writing, and at some point you get up and go to the bathroom, where he'd look over and see my light on or something, and a few minutes later he'd come by and like, hey Hunter, I just wrote this story about this. Can you read it and see what you think? So it's funny, there's a lot of bits and pieces of that book that I read when he wrote them, and kind of read off the legal pad, and to see them come to life in the book and fit the context of the book is a pretty cool thing.
I had my knee surgery, and I specifically said I can't have any, pain medication. And they said, well, you're going to be in a lot of pain when you come out of surgery. I said, maybe so, but I've got a deadline.
When he handed in the manuscript, it was over 700 pages long, and everyone had a heart attack. He really believed that it needed to be that length, and he was a man of passion and conviction, and he had a real firm idea about himself and what he had to say, and he was right.
No one expected it to do what it did. I mean, in large part because people in the literary world were naive and a little bit condescending towards our universe.
I think that we were all surprised at the extent of his success, because so few people have talent across the board like that. He's a great performer, he's a great writer, he's a great storyteller.
I mentioned in the foreword that I hope the book would hit the bestseller lists, just so I could say, from then on, if I was ever interviewed, Mick Foley, pro wrestler, best-selling author because it just sounds so ridiculous and so unlikely and bizarre.
When it was published, it was extraordinary because the booksellers were not expecting the droves of people that ran into the bookstore to read his book.
They were camped out here around noon today, and they've been like the greatest crowd, too.
This is the man we came to see.
It really was overwhelming. You know, I had a conversation with Barnes & Noble. They literally couldn't unpack the books fast enough to sell them.
It's the biggest book signing we've ever had. Since the store opened, I've been here, and we thought a few other people were going to pull up big, huge crowds, and didn't really. Jerry Springer, the Wes Craven, stuff like that, but this is like 10 times bigger.
I was pretty antsy to get my hands on his book, and he had such an eloquent story, and he told it so well.
That was the first one that the world took notice of.
It's a good book! I've already read it right away, and I bought it 3 hours ago!
He sold in the millions of copies, which was really, really unusual, very hard to do, and not something that too many people have accomplished. He's in a very elite group in terms of best-selling authors.
You guys gonna read this whole book? Okay, there's a couple bad words in there. Just don't repeat them, okay?
Hey, Tom! Baby!
First of all, if it wasn't half the book it would have been nice because it was him. But how exceptionally well it was put together.
My goal was always to tell that story and to take people on that emotional roller coaster ride.
It was so good when it got to the end, I would slow down because I didn't want it to end. I was enjoying his life story so much.
It was entertaining, it was moving, it was interesting, and they loved it.
My parents and my husband's parents, we all grew up in the same area, so they knew Mickey growing up, and that for the parents was, they even would have that out. Like, company that would come over who didn't even know Mickey, they were like, this is Tracy and Jim's friend, New York Times bestseller.
One of the things I'm proudest of, you're not seeing baseball players and basketball players writing their own books. Like, that trend hasn't caught on. But by this point, there's 7 or 8 of the guys have realized that, of our guys, have realized that they can do their own writing, and they can do it really, really well.
He went on to publish many books. I published 4 of his books. We did 2 children's books with him, and he published many autobiographical works. He was the hardest working man, really one of the hardest working people I've ever worked with.
When I decided to leave full-time wrestling, it's like you're ending this great relationship. And I remember going to Mr. McMahon and telling him about my knees. And then he'd make, I wish you could, you need to take care of yourself a little better. Vince was always concerned with the extra weight I was carrying. The moment I told him about the memory issues, he said, you've just had your last match. So I know there are people out there think Vince is ruthless and vile. And as a character, he can be. But there's a really caring, good side. And I was a guy who was making a lot of money for WWE, and he was willing to cast that aside. Al Snow and I had a match with Bob and Crash Holly, and I thought it was going to be my last match. As fate had it, Stone Cold Steve Austin suffered a serious neck injury. So there was this huge hole in the roster, and I went to Vince and I said, listen, maybe I could, help out just for a few months until we can work something out.
Top guy in this business, you can stick your name on a marquee and people will come. Doesn't matter who you're wrestling, doesn't matter. It's just your name is what draws people to the arena. And, neither Mick or I were that guy. Austin was, and he was gone. And they put us in a position to be those marquee guys. And the fact that Mick wanted to do it with me, I was humbled and blown away by that.
So I was given the opportunity to have a couple of matches with Triple H. We had an all-time classic match at the Garden. Ended up with me taking a pedigree in the thumbtacks, where the thumbtacks still meant something. It was up there, still up there in my top 5. I thought it was a defining moment in Triple H's career.
That street fight in 2000, still to this day, is one of my career favorite matches.
and then we ended up doing another one. So we had to try to top what we had done at the Garden, and we did it in a Hell in a Cell match.
I think myself, and I know a lot of others were very concerned about what Foley was going to do to top the last one.
Ended up in dramatic fashion with a backdrop through the cell. It was a perfect ending. Like, nothing could mess this up. And just, I reflected back on the career, you know, I thought this was a perfect way to end it. And then I ruined it.
Goodbye, Cactus. Thanks for the great memories, buddy. You're going to be missed, Cactus.
It really bothered Vince that I hadn't had that chance at a WrestleMania main event. I got a call like a couple of weeks later from Jim Ross, and he called me up to talk about plans for WrestleMania. And I thought, well, you know, what am I going to be hosting, like an event, doing an autograph session, because it's such a fun weekend for everyone involved. And he goes, actually, we'd like to have you in the main event. And I went, I just retired. Like, what do you mean? I can't.
He just came back, and I was like, what happened? He was like, they called me. Holy cow. And it was just like one of those things in the business, like, well, I guess never say never, right?
So I was in this bizarre situation where I was actually asking them not to put me in the WrestleMania main event.
Triple H will defend the World Wrestling Federation Championship against this man, Mick Foley.
I fought the idea of being in that WrestleMania event harder than anyone ever has, which is probably easy to say because probably no one has ever fought the idea of being in it. I mean, I was heavy in my heart. It wasn't really in it, you know, wasn't really in it. I kind of wished that I had kind of wished I'd never come back. On June 7th, 2000, I shaved off all my hair. And then my son, Dewey, saw what I was doing. He asked if I could do his hair, and I shaved his head too. And that was my sign to myself that I would never do anything in public again, like ever. I was done. Keep in mind, my hair had been long since 1985. The next day I went down to the Hershey Park front desk at the hotel, and they went, "How are you doing, Mr. Foley?" I was like, "What?" So when people would see me in the park, "Hey, are you Mick Foley?" "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." No, I'm not." "Then how come you only have one ear?" Like, oh, darn. And then 2 or 3 days after swearing I'd never do anything in the public eye again, I got a phone call from a familiar voice. "Hey, pal, how'd you like to be the commissioner?" And I went, "Oh, okay."
The new commissioner of the World Wrestling Federation, Mick Foley!
Mick came into that role and really did a good job of, you know, embracing the role.
I get to make the matches, I get to make the decisions, and I get to make damn sure that nobody ever has to listen to a boring 20-minute Triple H promo again.
I had so much fun, you know, and I think the first day, Edge and Christian set the tone, you know, when they said they wanted their own dressing room.
Tonight, the tag team champions had to change with the rest of the boys like a bunch of cattle.
Listen, guys, I happen to be a 3-time former WWF champion and a hardcore legend. I never had my own dressing room.
Mick, you never change your clothes. You just wrestle in what you're wearing.
That's a good point.
And I think before I left, I somehow broke out a Margaret Hamilton, Wicked Witch of the West.
Tell you what, I'll put my mind to it, but these things must be done very delicately. Wizard of Oz, the castle scene.
What the hell is he talking about?
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too!
Who hired this guy?
I don't know.
Nobody wrote down, no, this is the part where Mick does his imitation of Margaret Hamilton.
One at a time. One at a time. Dean Malenko's on the card, the light heavyweight
I'll beat him.
champion. How much do you weigh?
I'm like 217.
You're lying.
Damn it. All right. 226, but
Have this.
Oh, Mick, don't come here. I'm totally barfing in here. I'm totally. Ooh. Oh, it's bad. Oh, God.
You guys are like so totally busted, man.
Be off with you and let me rule some more.
way heinous.
I'm the ruler, a ruler. I made the decision that, you know, any semblance of being like the tough guy, hardcore legend, I was gonna shed that.
Shane, I don't tell this to many people, but that big match in Japan that everybody talks about with the C4 explosives and the barbed wire, guess what? Well, I lost both my guys that night. Both? Just ribbon. No pun intended. There they are, you little rascals.
Mr. Commissioner, are you sure you want to make this match?
Yes, I am, Gerald.
He's like a wounded animal, and you know how a wounded animal is.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. Come on.
Hey, the match stays, Briscoe. Go run and get me some coffee, okay?
Sure. I'm gonna get you coffee. What are you doing?
I've made my decision, and it's final.
Ow!
This is so gonna be the shortest reign ever for the Hardys.
Shortest reign, huh?
Yeah.
Then I guess they might need these. The shortest umbrellas. What is your short range?
It's not funny.
You're a freakazoid, Mick.
Dorkitude to the max.
I thought that was pretty good. What'd you think, Inga?
I thought that was rather funny, Mr. Bourne.
You're damn right it was.
I love the fact that we had guys actually searching for offices backstage, you know, finding unique places.
Got the shovel. He's putting it. Then it's right. Oh, my goodness. Harley takes one to the skull. Down goes Race.
Kind of became, let's find the strangest place in the arena we could do it. We decided to make a mobile office.
Okay, I'll stop talking.
You're not stopping. Stop it.
All right.
Stop. Okay, let's get out of here. We got work to do. Gangway, hardcore legend coming through. And you, no talking.
We went to all kind of extremes. I remember finding a deli case, and we decided we were going to use the deli case. Vic was going to be tending a deli case.
He found great locations, and I really had the time of my life.
Hey, Mick, nice shot.
Hey, thanks, Lillian. I'm used to scoring when chicks are around.
Commissioner Foley asked me to join you in the penalty box here tonight.
How much is that doggy in the window?
I'll tell you what. King me, you dirty dog.
A young girl who was a Make-A-Wish girl had given him a stuffed orange dog who became known as Sarge. And Mick brought the dog to me and said, hey, can we put this in one of my offices? And that dog was in every office from that point on.
How about I take a look at those puppies? Deborah, let's face it, they're so soft and cuddly, and sometimes I just want to whip them out and snuggle with them. Would you be offended? Look at those guys.
It's a part-time gig. No getting beat up, no getting tossed around, but you get to be in control, and then you get to be on TV every week. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? And Mick was smart enough at that time to realize that.
I showed up late, I left early, I didn't get hurt, I didn't have to change my clothes. And it was, to me, the most successful. That period of time was when I was recognized the most.
What's that say?
Commissioner.
And there?
Commissioner.
How about right there?
Commissioner.
I'm gonna give you a title shot.
Oh, really? Me and The Rock? What the hell are you doing? Trying to make up with me? It's not that. It's not funny. I'm thinking more along the lines of a hardcore match, you and that little crash guy, and bring out that wacky head thing you used to do. The people love that.
You're so lucky you're the commissioner.
You win a rock. That is good.
If there was a favorite line, like one of my favorite moments that nobody ever talks about, Kurt Angle walked into my office, and Kurt was a great comic foil.
First of all, I just want to say how I enjoy the way your beads drape around your neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, my daughter, man. It means a lot to me. And he tried to weasel his way out of something, and I believe I dropped him with.
Good, we're all in agreement. Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker tonight, and that's your kid. Final!
And Kurt, at a loss for words, just went.
I lied about the beads.
Jerk.
and he stormed off.
No, not about Kurt Angle, but, well, I did want to.
Did you see the booger in his
When
nose?
he won the title?
Yes, when he won the title.
It was enormous. It looked like a small child in his nostril.
The thing was just hanging there.
While he could do humorous stuff and mess with the heels and be funny,
I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Kurt. I'm going to take your request under advisement.
at the same point in time, at the drop of a hat, you know, the heel could do something and really piss Mick off, and now it was serious GM.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do after I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to get the hell out of my office, and then I'm going to do some thinking about Stone Cold Steve Austin, make a decision, and it will be final!
I was only a commissioner for 6 months. I should have done it. My biggest mistake was not ensuring that I came back.
How about a hug?
Oh, God.
Hey, what's... Here's your clipboard.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Move that you can do. Oh, an excellent move.
Mick, Deborah, Beauty and the Beast. No offense, Deborah.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
What kind of company are you running here?
Perhaps it's true what the other chaps backstage say, that you're some kind of a joke.
I should have done whatever it took to make sure that I was that guy for as long as possible.
All the WWF superstars, we require that you resign effective immediately.
Do you plan to resign as commissioner?
People ask me, oh, what was your, your biggest role in WWE, or where did you make the most difference? I swear, I think it was as the commissioner. So I look back with great fondness. I am to that position what Bret Hart is to, wrestling. When it comes to being the commissioner, I'm the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Because I have this, and that makes my decision final!
I wanted to write a novel, and the WWE's relationship with Regan Books was ending, and Judith called me and she made me an offer on the novel and said we could do this with WWE or without them. And I wanted to do something on my own. I really did. And in retrospect, what would it have mattered? If WWE had published the novel, it would have been largely the same. Maybe the story would have taken a little different twist. But it was really important for me at that time to do the novel on my own. And unfortunately, that caused a lot of friction in my relationship with WWE. And I asked if I could get out of my contract.
Mick and I had a great relationship, and we still do, and I knew that the end of the trail was coming.
He said, Mick, we get the feeling that if we were to try to force you to stay, we'd eventually be in a position where we could never do business again. But if we were to let you go, we think we can probably do business at another time. And I said, well, I think that's true. And I shook hands with JR and I walked away. A year and a half later, I saw that Triple H and Kevin Nash had a Hell in a Cell match coming up. It struck me that we might be able to do something that would benefit all sides.
Mick has always wanted to do more than he was asked to do. The WWE has always been willing to take as much of Mick as they could get it.
WWE gave me an amazing send-off at Madison Square Garden, an arena that had meant so much to me.
I want to present you with this.
The Hardcore Championship.
I quoted the great philosopher Frosty the Snowman when I said,
I'll say goodbye, but don't you cry. I'll be back again someday. Thank you very much.
I got a call from WWE asking what I would think about teaming up with The Rock at WrestleMania to face Evolution. I had a chance to have my first match in 4 years, and I wanted to make the most of it. I dropped a lot of weight, 60 pounds, worked really hard for 6 months, and then when I got to Madison Square Garden and I realized the magnitude of the situation, Evolution's out in the ring, it's the legendary Nature Boy, It's The Rock. I said I don't pray often before matches, but I specifically prayed, and I remember my words. It was like, please, God, don't let me suck out there. That was the bar, not sucking.
You got to wonder what kind of stamina Foley's going to have. It's been 4 years since he's been in the ring.
The only problem with the story is I went out at WrestleMania. I didn't deliver.
Mick's told me that he was disappointed with his performance in WrestleMania 20. It's hard for you to, really feel like you gave your best performance when it's a handicap tag and everyone else has to shine.
And Randy Orton with the RKO. Beautiful. Out of nowhere. Beautiful. Out of nowhere. Evolution wins it.
It wasn't what I came back for. Really felt like I let myself down, and I wanted another shot at it.
The following is a no-holds-barred, Falls Count Anywhere match, and it is for the Intercontinental Championship.
Back then, WWE was a little bit different. It wasn't PG. We bled, and we beat the holy crap out of each other.
My God.
Good grief, he's sick. He's demented.
You won't see a match that violent ever again in WWE. It was pretty wild.
Oh, God. Oh, my gosh, look at this. Man, this is not for the weak at heart, I'll tell you that.
That match just had little, crescendos every minute where it would get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And oh, my God, body slam on a bit of the barbed wire.
This was the match that finally took the spot from Mind Games with Shawn Michaels. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and we delivered.
And Cactus's flesh is hanging from that barbed wire. Oh, man. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Mick Foley made Randy Orton matter back then. He made me credible. I was the legend killer, but Mick made me the legend killer.
He needed this moment to shine, but I needed the moment just as bad for myself. I needed to know that I had that one match left in me. For that brief moment, I could be as good as I ever was, and I ended up being better than I'd ever been.
No! Oh, no! Oh, my God! The elbow off the stage!
And if there had just been a director to yell, cut, and you will never wrestle again, that would have been another perfect ending. After the build-up and 2 big matches with Randy, I kind of went my own way. I had a bunch of other projects that I was doing. I got really involved in doing work with charitable organizations. I found one of the things I missed the most about being in WWE was that chance to make a difference on a daily basis. And I missed being around the kids. My wife and I at that point had been sponsoring kids through Child Fund for 12 years. It's now 20. I've been able to make trips to visit my kids in the Philippines. The girl I've been sponsoring since she was 3 is 1 semester away from becoming a registered nurse. So there's a real success story. And there are a handful of schools there that are, my wife and I funded. There's a Mick and Colette Foley Middle School. That's cool stuff. That stuff is going to outlive me, and maybe even my, legacy in WWE. This is cool stuff.
The biggest thing I've gotten from Mick Foley, besides his friendship, and which is a huge thing, he's one of my closest friends, especially in the entertainment business, is he has inspired me to be a charitable person. I never did really any charity work before I met Mick Foley. And watching Mick at the level he works as far as his charitable work and the efforts he does, it embarrassed me into getting my ass in gear and doing something. And thanks to Mick's inspiration, this year I've received awards from the March of Dimes for being the Presidential Volunteer of the Year, from the Long Island Music Hall of Fame for my charitable work. I'm getting all sorts of recognition as this amazing amazingly charitable person, and I'm basically embarrassed to receive these awards because compared to Foley, I'm nothing. This guy, I don't know where he finds the time. He's one of the kindest, most generous people I've ever met, and he puts all of us to shame. And it's good to have him out there because he just makes me just keep trying to raise the bar.
I also had a chance to go out there and see some young, upcoming wrestlers. It's nice, to stay connected with that grassroots level. But I like to think that when I go, like when I make calls to Vince McMahon and say, I have a couple guys I think you should see, I like to think that it means more since I don't do it very often. And there were two guys that I thought he needed to see. And one of them was CM Punk. I'd seen Punk and the other wrestler, Samoa Joe, just in some great matches.
He took a liking to me. He took a liking to my friend Samoa Joe, and he started telling us how he was gonna, I'm gonna talk to Vince and I'm gonna pitch this idea. I think you guys are great. I think you guys should work for the WWE. And we were far enough along in our careers where we were just like, okay, we've heard this before, but okay, all right. It's nice to hear that from somebody who is WWE champion, somebody who's had such a legendary career like Mick Foley. And I got to do a couple things with him. I got to do a couple in-ring promos and interact with them and stuff like that. And it's night and day from just getting advice from a legend or for somebody who has such experience just backstage. It's another thing to be in the ring with them, even if it's just a promo, even if it's not a match or anything like that. And to be able to work with Mick at the level I was at and the level he was at, it was amazing. It was a hell of a learning experience. It's very, very selfless, just very giving man. Honestly, I think he helped me get to where I'm at. He helped me get a job here.
I'm lucky that somewhere along the line we worked the word legend into my nickname, because otherwise you can't really be a legend unless you've had that great WrestleMania moment.
How does this great future Hall of Famer not have the defining WrestleMania moment? And he wanted to have it with Edge.
We had a really good, dramatic, hard-fought, spectacular, bloody match that ended as well and as spectacularly as any match possibly can.
Oh my God,
here we go! Oh my God, what's gonna happen? Look out! Oh my God!
He went through a flaming table. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life.
The one with Edge was a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece.
But even as the referee counted 3, and even as I was surrounded by like this strange potpourri of burnt hair and charred flesh and blood, like I was very cognizant of the fact that this was my WrestleMania moment.
I saw them both in the trainer's room, and I mean, their skin and hair is missing, and and there's this look of success and accomplishment.
Just smell of forearm hair burning, a little bit of skin as well.
Now, I didn't need the word legend in my nickname to be considered a legend, although it never hurts. But it was, yeah, great. And another case where I should have closed the door and said, call it a wrap, that's a career. I think after the Backlash match with Randy Orton, that part of me knew that every comeback was at least partially about the money. And once it's about the money, it's never quite as pure.
I think sometimes you step away with the full intentions of retiring, and then, your heart gets torn because you love what you do. You love being in front of the crowd. You love being in the locker room with the guys. You love performing. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? You call it a day and you never wrestle again, and people go, man, he stuck to his word. Isn't that awesome? But every single one of them would pay a lot of money to see you wrestle one more time.
I've given several chances to write my own ending, close the door at the right time. It's just really hard.
His body was saying, okay, I'm glad we've made it this far, but there's not much left.
He's done some amazing things in our industry that we'll never forget, and his body has paid the price for it.
had a small role in a movie called Animorph that was produced by Shane McMahon's wife, Marissa. And I went to the movie premiere a year or so later. I saw Mr. McMahon. He thanked me for being there. And I don't, his mind works in a way, that I don't know if any of us will ever completely understand. So I don't know if this had been on his mind for months or whether it just occurred to him when I was standing there. But he asked me how I'd feel about trying commentary on SmackDown. And I kind of laughed. I said, I don't know, Vince, I've heard about you on those headsets. That Vince, as a producer, would often, insist on certain things being said. But he's the owner, who am I to say this is not the way to do it, it's your company. But he kind of laughed. He goes, Mick, I'm not as, not better at that. And so we shook hands and I said, all right, I'll give it a try. Pay-per-view was like, 4 days later or something like that. I went out and I think it was pretty much universal. I did a pretty good job and I enjoyed it. I made it a point not to make it about me. I think in time I would have found my voice and found more humor and felt a little more natural, but I did. I brought a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience, and I enjoyed working with Michael Cole. I mean, he was a huge help.
Mick Foley, welcome aboard, Mick. Thank you so much, Michael Cole. Can you hear that? It's the sounds of thousands in attendance simultaneously realizing I'm not the coach.
He realized that it was going to take a while to get to where he wanted to be. And he was willing to put in that time. Mick was also a hard worker, and he did his research. He was always around ringside before the show, talking to the guys, getting information about their background, finding out what they were hoping to do in their match. Really took the job seriously, did a lot of research on the internet. So Mick really wanted to be a good commentator. He never took anything for granted. He realized it was a new step in his career, and he was real serious about it. Really
Thought I had come on to something I could do for the next 10 years. And then my wife and kids were coming out to California. We were gonna go to Disneyland. And she was at the hotel in San Diego when I came home, and she heard like those little alcohol bottles clinking. I'm not much of a drinker. And she opened up the door. She goes, "It went that well?" And I went, "Nope." Mr. McMahon has his way of dealing with people, and some people, like JR said, like, well, yeah, as a coach, some people deal better with a pat on the back than a kick in the butt. And Vince wasn't patting me on the back that night. He was dropping a couple of naughty, dropping the F-bomb on me, and I wasn't used to it.
For the most part, what Vince McMahon says to you, especially on commentary, into your headset, when he critiques your performance, it's nothing personal. It's the fact that this man built this company into a global empire, and he wants it to be successful at every level. If you take it personal, it's going to bother you. You just have to realize at the end of the show, he's moved on to 45,000 other things, and he doesn't even remember, what he was saying at the time. He's just so engrossed in the product. Mick could never separate the fact that what was being said to him wasn't personal.
I never felt comfortable enough to really be myself out there. And maybe in time I would have grown to be a really good announcer. But when Vince was giving away the $1 million, and I said,
Michael, did you say that almost 1 million people have registered to win Mr. McMahon's $1 Million Mania?
That's right, and it all starts on Raw this coming week.
My goodness. Mr. McMahon hasn't thrown away this much money since he signed Goldberg.
And I got Vince going, "All right, Foley, now I do hate you because it's true."
I think over the months that Mick did this, he didn't want to deal with Vince.
And it just bothered me. So I called up Vince. I really thought I was going to get his answering machine. And I said, and instead he answered, "Hello, Vince, this is Mick." I didn't know what to say. Just want you to know, I can't remember the last time I was spoken to that way, such disrespect, and this is part of the job. I think you should give it to somebody else. And he went, Mick, that was my bad. I'm asking you to forgive me. You know, I shouldn't have said that. And I went, okay, Vince, you have to understand. This is where my wife thought I was certifiably crazy. I said, I'm going to Disneyland in 2 days. I can't allow anybody to mess that trip up for me. She's like, I hang up my wife goes, you sound like you're effing crazy, you know, like you're telling Mr. McMahon that you have to go to Disneyland and, you know, yeah, man, mine's got to be, you know, got to be clear, go to Disney. And with that, you know, 3-4 weeks went by and things were fine again. And so it was the second time, you know, it's the next time that it happened, I realized, oh, okay, this is part of the job.
Hey, listen, some of us will put up with it. I've done it for 15 years. Some people won't, and Mick was one of those that wouldn't do it.
And I've got this, you know, it's a really complex relationship with Vince. There's a part of me that really not only appreciates him, but I love the guy. I do, you know. He's been one of the most important people in my life. There are other times, though, you know, he's, but that was my falling out, is that when I realized that that wasn't what I wanted to do. I had 2 different top specialists tell me independently of each other, you're done. And again, I went with hey, I can do a match involving my left knee. And Dr. Cantu said, you've got a lot going for you. You should never be inside a wrestling ring again. And it was a tough pill to swallow. But I feel lucky that I had the company there for me, finding out before it's too late and taking care of me. You know, they understand that I can't do the things that I used to do. They're not going to ever ask me to do those things.
I don't think I need to see Mick Foley fall off a Hell in a Cell, but, you know, give me Mick Foley pulling a sock out of his drawers and, you know what I mean, making people laugh and putting smiles on people's faces. I'll take that any day of the week.
They've shown me in so many ways that I'm still a valuable part of the company by doing this DVD, by doing a children's book, you know, by being part of the Be a Star campaign. There's still a lot of ways that I can be a vital part of the company, but I'm really relieved that, you know, my days as an in-ring performer are done. The door is finally closed, maybe not at the right time. I should have shut it myself before I was forced shut on me, but I'm glad that it's closed.
Our final performer tonight. It's great to have him here. How about a great big round of applause? Give it up, everybody, for Mick Foley. Mick Foley, everybody.
I remember the first time I was given an opportunity to speak at a college in probably early 2000, specifically because the first book had done well. I was now a credible college speaker. I would tell stories. I tried to make them educational in some respect, you know, involving my travels around the world. But I found I liked making people laugh. Every reaction I get and every experience that I find gratifying comes back to making me feel the way I did when I was in the ring. And then the well kind of ran dry, you know. Around 2007, I remember having my last college speech, and it was something I missed. So when I was given the chance to perform at the Improv in LA, I went up there and I had a couple of stories, you know, an old Al Snow story, and it went pretty well. It went pretty well enough to where we did, you know, a dozen or so of these shows. And I just hit upon some themes, some ideas, and told some stories where I realized I've got something here, like I've really got something. If I don't pursue this, I'm going to be sitting on my couch 10 years from now saying I could have done that.
Some of you, if you glance at your program and you see my picture there, that shirt may be somewhat familiar. I'm not saying it's a similar looking shirt. I'm saying that's the exact same shirt, which may not seem significant until you realize that picture's 12 years old. And so the non-fans are like, gosh, what are the odds of this guy wearing the exact same shirt 12 years apart? And the wrestling fans are like, the odds are actually quite high of that. He hasn't changed the way he looks in 25 years.
To hear Mick do his material, I really give him a lot of credit because he's funny, he's got good stage presence.
He's getting better. I know he's getting better. Because he's always been funny to us. You know, he did crazy things. He makes us laugh.
George W. Bush looked at me and went like this. Bang, bang. For those of you who don't know, the President of the United States used my wrestling catchphrase and gesture on me.
Yeah, I think he's really funny. He tells like really stupid, corny jokes, but I love stupid, corny jokes, so it works out.
We loved it, you know, just to see him. And to me, it was like the writer in him came out, and it fit. I was so surprised. I didn't know what to expect.
I watched him do his stand-up recently, and I could not believe how polished and professional and excellent he was at it.
Courtesy laughs are appreciated.
There's a guy that sat there and watched Snuka jump off the cage and had a dream, and for all intents and purposes, didn't have the look, not a great athlete, you know, just wouldn't take no for an answer, and he overcame all those things. But it was a long, hard road, and he never gave up, and he worked hard, and he never quit.
In order to make himself a star, was willing to absorb a lot of punishment.
He was an originator. He was the person to start the whole hardcore genre in my mind.
Mick Foley was the daredevil of pro wrestling at large, and I think a lot of people were captivated by that.
Mick has laid down a long legacy that will stand up 50 years from now. Watching those performances will be compelling then as it is now.
There's a lot of guys that came from that hardcore style that Mick sort of paved the way for.
Mick Foley sacrificed every ounce of his body to entertain the WWE fans.
He has brought 100% of what he has internally, mentally, physically to this business, and he gave it all.
And there's something about a guy like Mick, his ability to get up off the deck and move forward and endure.
Mick has given the wrestling industry a true one-off. That sounds pretty simple, but it's not. That's a big statement. A one-off kind of a character, a one-off personality.
Can do it all. When a lot of people don't realize that, he gets a lot of credit and attribute for his hardcore stuff, but you gotta think about just his ability to speak on the mic, his ability to control a crowd on the mic, his ability to captivate a crowd through words and through actions.
Mick is a beloved superstar. There used to be signs in the crowd that said Foley is God.
Mick Foley doesn't look like a superhero. He's an extremely common man. And he's as common as anyone sitting in the stands. There's always that attraction. Hey man, you did it. Thanks for doing it for all of us.
I'm sure Mick Foley lives in constant daily pain, but he has his wife, and he has his children, and his family loves him. And there's a lot of people in this business that can't say that.
He is by far the best father that I've ever been around in my life.
When second grade, we had this assignment that you had to choose your hero, and I picked my dad, and he thought that was awesome, and he's still my hero, and he always will be. He had a dream, and he lived it. So I think that's inspirational.
He's made millions. He has saved millions, but he still has that amazing work ethic where he works like he's broke.
Mick is the tightest guy I've ever seen on the road. He squeaks when he walks. But he is tight for a reason. He doesn't blow a nickel on himself. But he'll spend every last dollar he has on his family. He'll spend every last dollar he has on that crippled kid over there in that chair.
He is one of the most lovable, honest, down-to-earth people that you will ever meet.
I'm really happy. Lucky I'm home enough. I'm able to make my own schedule. I see my kids doing a pretty good job as a dad, I think. And I hope I caught these injuries in time. You know, give up the roller coasters, look off camera when someone flashes a light bulb. Every once in a while, when I have to walk down more than a couple flights of stairs, I'll say, what have I done to myself? But I'm in pain, and these things apparently don't get better. But this is stuff that I knew as I was launching myself, offering aprons onto concrete. So you don't often hear me complain. I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good.